everyone in as we're waiting for the last few registrants to come on board. Can everybody see the chat window? If you can see the chat window, you can share where you're joining us from. You can also give us some insight about what you'd like to get out of today's session. If you're looking for more confidence when you communicate or more influence skills, give us a sense of where to spend our time with you today. Indiana, North Carolina, Columbus, Pennsylvania, very cool. Nashville, I've been there. Country Music Hall of Fame, it's a very interesting place there. Boise, Idaho. Hello, Peng Fei, how are you? I remember you. Florida, I used to live in Florida. Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Denver, Colorado. Well, I'm in Palo Alto, California. Margaret, where are you from? Where are you calling in from?
I am in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That is a little bit west of Greensboro and about an hour north of Charlotte.
Are you starting to feel winter, or is it still fall for you?
The leaves are still falling, but today was pretty chilly, about 50, and it was raining all day long.
Wow.
I wondered at one point whether it was sleeting, but thank goodness it wasn't.
That's good indoor weather, I'm going to tell you.
Yes, that is good. It was good indoor weather.
Margaret, we have someone in the chat who's wanting to learn how to speak logically and coherently.
Terrific. Many of my clients want to do that, and I'll have a couple of tips for you today.
Great. I'm sure he'll be there with paper and pen to capture some notes about that. We have Leo Lee from China. Margaret, you have quite a few clients from China, right? Or Chinese Americans.
Yes, yes. I have many clients who grew up in China, and I have had two clients when they were in China.
Oh, interesting.
Well. Mm-hmm. So Leo Lee, you asked if you have a pathological issue. So accented features are not pathological. Pathological means that there is something wrong physically with your mouth or something wrong with the message getting to your mouth. I can't tell you that through this. I would need to meet with you. I mean, by Zoom.
Yeah. You'd have to spend some one-on-one time, right, to really diagnose.
Yeah.
Overcome it with techniques, tools, practice, right? I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Angela wants to learn how to improve her vocal quality.
Okay, I have some tips on that. And I'd also like to say most people, when they first hear themselves, they don't like how their voice sounds. And I have kind of a funny thing. I have an identical twin sister.
Wow.
And so we had a great time fooling people, boyfriends on the phone. I even tried going to her German class one time. And occasionally when I hear my voice on a recording, I say, hey, what's talking like that? What's Mary saying? So I think of our skull as the best stereo system around. And when we hear a recording, you're just not hearing it through the best stereo system of your skull.
Yes.
That's not scientific. That's just a Margaret Morris thought.
Yes, there's also folks that want to learn how to expand their vocabulary in the workplace.
Okay.
Someone who wants to know how to make like small talk or elevator pitch in an elevator, right? How to
Okay.
have
Yep.
a discussion and smooth off the anxiousness. And then there's a person that wants to correct their accent.
Okay.
Kathy, do you think it's time for us to jump in?
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce Margaret Morris, who is one of our Mighty coaches. She's been on before, and this is her second time being interviewed here on a My Tuesday. She's a seasoned communication coach who has training in speech pathology and has certification in accent modification from the Institute of Language and Phonology. She has a broad range of professional clients who are seeking confidence in their communications, how to get clarity, how to be more effective in presenting, how to be more influential with others in the workplace. And she has experience with Asians and specifically Chinese speaking people, native Chinese speakers. So Margaret, welcome back to Mighty. And is there anything you'd like to add to your intro that I might have missed, or you want to go a little further?
Well, I want to say that I love seeing people advance their communication. I started working with kids, and the transformation was terrific, seeing kids and seeing adults transform their ideas on their how they communicate is very thrilling. I had a recent client, I think the last time I saw her was about 10 days ago. I really haven't stopped smiling because that last session I had with her, she told me how learning how to small talk has really changed her life. She now knows that she can have deeper friendships with her Chinese friends, and she can talk with other people at work. And now she imagines that she could become a manager. She had never thought of that before. I'm just so happy for her that she has discovered that she can have small conversations with people, and that's opened up her world.
Yeah, it's amazing how breaking the ice when you get into a conference room and it's just you and one person or you and a few people, being able to break the ice and ease into some personal conversation can help you build a rapport that spills into the workplace and makes you more effective when you have to work with those people, right?
Mm-hmm. And really, it's just a skill. It's not magic. It's a skill that you can learn. Just like we can all get more fit and learn to do some new activity, so too can you do it with communication. The difference is you can get the skill in communication and you don't have to practice it every single day. You have that skill.
Right.
Stay
Once you have it, it's hard to lose it.
right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you may need to practice a lot in the beginning, especially like starting off easy in friendly environments and then, pushing the envelope and trying to do it with people maybe you weren't comfortable with before, but now that you can do it with your friends or the friends of friends, and then with the workplace with someone on your team, and then with somebody visiting the company, you can expand it gradually, right?
That's right. That's right. You start out in a low stress environment on something easy. That's how I work with my clients. People find me really easy to work with. I love getting to know people. I'm a very easygoing person, and we'll start easy and we'll gradually bump it up. And then you'll get some homework assignments to try it with people that you know well, or maybe people that you don't, and you're just really not going to ever see that person again. So why not go ahead and try something? And then we'll find other ways that you can advance it.
That's a great point. People you're never going to see again are what you call no downside opportunities.
Oh, good. Right. Uh-huh.
You can engage with them. You know, you don't know anything about them, unlike the other folks. So now let's try a more rigorous skill that you may have worked on a stranger.
Right.
And if you completely mess it up and it's awkward, you're never going to see them again. So that's a really good point, Margaret. So why don't we dive in?
Sure.
And people in the audience, feel free to post your questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring for those, and we'll do our best to work them in immediately, or if we know there's a more appropriate time to ask your question, we may save it for that part of this talk. But feel free to enter them when you think of them. I'm going to ask one of my questions. So Margaret, what are some of the key issues that impair confidence or the ability to influence in a professional?
What are the key things that affect your communication at work? Basically,
Yes,
right?
right.
All right. Well, confidence and voice projection. You need to project your voice loud enough so people can hear you. But if you are uncertain or you don't know how to use your breath, then you're not going to speak loud enough. Knowing how to organize your message for the setting can be tricky, especially if you grew up or were working in a different environment and now you've moved someplace new and you're not sure how exactly to get right to your point. Maybe you don't have the words, or you don't know the culture and how to organize your message. So that's something that I work on with almost all of my clients, is improving their organization to their message.
So giving them a sense of structure in how they will respond.
And practicing that.
Okay. Are there different scenarios where they may have different ways to organize their responses?
Right. So maybe I should bring up a slide. I was wondering if now was the time or not. So let's see. So being succinct and compelling is the way to get noticed. Many of my clients told me that they ramble on and on because they can't figure out how to get to the point. And we have all talked to people, right, that go on and on and on. And we just want them to get to their point. It's tricky, even whether we're speaking our native language or not, when we get carried away. So we have to have a plan of action. So being succinct, getting to our point will help us. There are different frameworks that you can use, and you may have heard about the STAR format of organizing behavioral interview questions, where you first state this. You're asked a question like, share a time where you took the leadership role at work. So you're going to describe the situation, tell the task at hand, then you describe the action that you took and how your other teammates worked. And finally, you tell the results. And people like to hear how you saved time, money, or saved a project. So that's a kind of framework. There are other kinds of frameworks that you can use when you're at work and not interviewing for a job. And knowing those organizational strategies can help you because you know how to organize it. Then you plug in the information. There are phrases that you can use also when you're relaying your information that will draw attention to what you're saying. Let's see, what else did I have on this? So I also had entering a conversation. Sometimes it's tricky to get in or get a word in edgewise. So you might have to say, just a moment, I want to go back a few minutes to when we were discussing Project X. I thought about that and I have some comments to add. Then it's great.
That's a great leadership skill, because you're taking part ownership of the conversation instead of letting the other person just take the conversation and you're just responding. What you're bringing up is a great effective way to have parity,
Mhm, mhm.
right?
Right. Another thing about being a leader is you have to listen to people, and they like to know that you listen to them. So you could say, I really appreciate your point, Angel, and I'd like to add to that.
Mm,
So you have shown the group that you were listening to Angel, you appreciated what she had to say, and in fact, you want to add another part to it.
that's a great point. And to add on to what you just said, Margaret, is sometimes you can test your understanding with them. Say, if I understood you correctly, you said this, that, and the other thing. So that would be like a way of reading back, and then they really appreciate, wow, you got 100%. Or it's their opportunity to make a slight correction where you didn't get it quite right.
Right. Instead of leaving the meeting wondering if you got the information, summarize it like Mark said. You know, our attention span is less than a goldfish. Okay. It's not just because you are maybe speaking a different language, have a different native language. No one in that meeting is listening well. So by you restating it, you are really being very helpful to everyone.
You know, it's gotten a lot worse too in the last 20 years, since people now bring their laptops to their meetings, they look on their phones. It's a lot worse than when people just showed up with a pad of paper and a pen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right. So these are some other ideas on the slide of how to improve your message and make it more interesting and compelling.
Mm.
I want to point out, instead of, wondering if you're telling too little, go ahead and finish up and then offer, what questions may I answer? That shows that you have a lot more to say, but you're trying to be succinct. And now that invites your audience in to participate in the conversation.
That's a great one, because you're inviting them to be interacting with you, right? They may have gone to sleep if you rambled on for 5 minutes. You know,
Mhm.
another technique is, if you found you went across the line, you went too far, you could say, in summary, right? And
Mhm.
then in a minute, just give them the cliff notes. Just get right to the succinct point. I mean, you've talked through it for 3 or 4 minutes. Say, okay, well, just in summary, let me say this. And then they'll all get out of their goldfish mode, snap
Mhm.
back to attention, and you have 1 minute to deliver that concise point, right?
Mhm. Mhm. And that is a great phrase, in summary. That just makes everybody want to listen.
Right.
Mhm.
We have a few questions, if you don't mind. I think a few of these we can take
Sure.
right now, unless you wanted to cover another slide or two. What's your preference,
I-
Margaret?
I'm fine to do with the questions. I'm counting on you to keep track of the time.
Okay, very good. So one person is wondering, what is a good technique to have smoother, spontaneous speech without too many filler words?
All right, that's a great question and one that I get often. The first thing I want you to know is everybody uses filler words, right? You might not notice it because you're listening to the content, but I want you to listen to a famous speaker and you are going to hear all sorts of filler words.
Mm.
Next thing to try to get rid of filler words, think about pausing. You're only going to pause for half a second, a quarter of a second. That's not too long for someone to wait. Just pause and then move on. A really simple activity that I used with a client a few years ago was, I said, I want you to talk through some of your daily activities that are in sequence, like tying your shoe, but say each step by step and pause, and don't let yourself say a filler word.
Hmm.
Amazingly, that simple idea worked wonders for her. And she started inserting pauses into her speech and getting rid of filler words. And of course, then she moved on to something harder. Something harder might be you listen to a simple story on NPR, or you listen to your child read a book to you, or part of a book, just a little bit of a book, and then you retell the story. So the content isn't hard. And in fact, you already know what the content is. You aren't having to think of the content and try to speak smoothly.
That's great advice. And for folks who are speaking English as a second language, the other benefit of taking those pauses is it's letting them get ready to say maybe one or two of the words in the next phrase that is typically a challenge for them, right? So they slow it down and then say, okay, this next word I have to remember to emphasize the SH in the middle or something, right?
Right. And the pauses will help you be more articulate. It will help you get a more American intonation. It will help you have time to take a breath so you can relax, project your voice, get some oxygen to your brain. I have been amazed over the last 6 years how many adults really benefited by practicing breathing. Breathing, we have to breathe, but we forget because we get all tensed up. But just taking a nice relaxing breath helps us relax our nervousness, and then speaking on a big full breath helps us project our voice louder. Our voice sounds fuller, and you sound more confident when you're speaking on a full breath of air.
Leo Lee was bringing up if they were wondering if they have a born talent limitation to produce certain sounds. And that's one I've heard a lot from some of my Chinese speaking clients too, is they didn't grow up making some of those sounds. They're wondering if it's something they're born with. What's your perspective?
Okay, there are definitely some physical issues that you can be born with that make it difficult to say certain sounds. But that is really a small percentage. When we are born, we are capable of learning any language, and we can learn a couple of them at one time and speak them beautifully, like you've probably seen in your children. So to learn a new sound, like let's say to learn the American R sound, that is a tricky sound. No doubt about it. It takes a lot of special action, and you cannot see what I'm doing with my tongue when I make that R sound. So you have to, sometimes you can pick it up on your own, but I bet I can get you to say it. I bet that I can tell you how you need to move your tongue to say whatever sound it is.
That's funny you should bring that up. The American R, because my English is my second language. I speak German as my first language. And we have to use 3 different R's. And Americans have like the R or the R sound, but we have 2 other R sounds. We have the one in the back of the throat, that's R, and then we have the one in the front, that's R. So there are words we have to say ribbity rubbity roll, right? Or rast, right? And my brother didn't grow up speaking German. He can't say those 2 R's. And it's so funny when we go to Switzerland on a vacation or something, and he tries to speak his German, there's some words that just come out with the 2 R's, not all 4, right? It's a matter of learning how to how to change your shape of your mouth, right?
It is your mouth, but it is your tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Your tongue, the movement of your tongue for the American R, for the R that's in rabbit and rat, really depends on where your tongue is in your mouth and that your lips are not round. Then there's the vocalic R, like in car, and a different one's in paper, and a different one is in hour. That takes another little movement and more of your mouth shape than the R that's at rabbit. So Leo Lynn or
Leo Lee.
Leo Lee, there is a one session that you can sign up with Mighty to talk with me, and I can look on with you on Zoom and check things out.
That's great. Yeah, so we're gonna have some discussion of some programs Margaret's offering at the end of this. So if you're interested, we'll have some things to talk about that will be of interest to you specifically about that. James, you have fewer varieties of English vocabulary words. Any ways to build that?
Okay. When we're younger, we can learn vocabulary quickly, right? And we can beef up our vocabulary for the SAT or the ACT or whatever test you're getting ready for, the GRE. But that is not the same as boosting your vocabulary at work. You have many things on your mind that you are working to negotiate. So the best thing is to take a strategic approach. Listen to what other people are saying. What words are they saying? And write down a few. A few means 3, maybe 3 a day, at the most 10 over the week. Then practice using those when you're not at work, and then gradually sprinkle them in. You cannot add 100 words, right? And probably you don't need 100 words. You just need to learn the words that somebody else is using and the words that lead into something, like Mark said, in summary. Also, you don't need fancy words. Like our attention span has gotten lower. We want simple words that we can easily process and understand. So the more simple the word, the better your point is going to come across.
That's an interesting tip. And to be 100% transparent, when I was after college, when I was working during the weekdays, I would keep a dictionary and a notepad by my bed. And how I would get to sleep is I would look through that dictionary for words I might have heard of or heard used, or I had never heard of them. But if they had interesting meanings, I would write them down. And in the morning, I would look at those words as well as the ones previously and say, which new words am I going to try to inject into a conversation this week? And I would try to get that word injected 3 times within a week in an appropriate setting, in an appropriate use. And what I found over time is my vocabulary just exploded, right? Because I did that for years. The other benefit is you don't have to take melatonin to get to sleep.
Okay, there you go.
You'll eventually just tire your brain out, and within 15 minutes or half an hour, you will be asleep.
Okay, so 3 words a week. Wow, by the end of the month, you've got 12 good, interesting words.
Yes. Yeah, it's a great tactic. It's exactly what you're saying, Margaret, is pick a few words and try to learn how to pronounce them, try to use them. And when you find people responding well, it's reinforcement that you've said it right, you're using it in the right context, and it makes you feel better about your effort, right?
Right.
We have another question here. Let's see, what's this one? Oh, actually, what I think we should do is move on to the next part of your discussion. So you're talking about being succinct and compelling. What is unique about how you work with people compared to other coaches you're aware of?
Okay. A unique thing about my program is that I do accent modification and I pair it with business communication. Often people do one or the other. They don't usually combine it. And I found that business communication is really interesting. It's fun to teach, and people really want that, right? You want to communicate at work. It's not so much if you say the TH sound or the R sound or the L sound correctly. You want people to understand you at work. So polishing up your English pronunciation and intonation, but then plugging it into something you can use on a daily basis, that makes a difference. I have two great practice instruments that I use. Should I show that now?
Yes, please. Yes,
Okay.
that would be great.
All right, just one second. Okay. All right. So can you see my screen? It has accent freedom on it.
I see it, yes.
Okay, great. This is a marvelous program that I use with my clients. It was developed by a speech language pathologist, and amazingly, she was like about 2 years behind me in school. And then we are about the similar age. We traveled around, and then we both landed in North Carolina, and I met her through this program. So this program is a terrific practice. It has a terrific model. It's not an AI model. It's a real person. It allows you to practice and hear how you sound and to submit your homework for me to hear you. So I'm going to try to just quick go through one set of the lessons. So this one is the voiceless TH sound. It's hard, right? So the first thing about improving your communication is you have to know what you want to sound like. So first you tune up your ears.
Sad, sad, tad,
So you learn to hear the difference. Then you learn how to make the sound. Okay. And you practice it with words. So listen, I'm going to say it. Sometimes I'm going to have one correct one and then two wrong, two just not exactly American English. Okay. Thigh, tie, tie. Now I can listen back on myself, because to make a change, you have to be able to notice it, right? Okay. Thigh, tie, tie. Okay, do you hear it, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, so instead of using the TH, I used a T, right? Let's see. The lessons continue on. Okay, there are more words. Let's get to the sentences. Now you'll notice this green rectangle. This is, I have listened to this client and I have left them some feedback. All right. So I heard him doing well, but I want him to do the first and second sentences again. They're going to practice. And now they
Let me
can,
ask you a quick question here. So is this in real time, or they're recording it and then sometime you listen and you give them answers and then they can check for
Yes.
messages?
yes,
And then
they
they're
check.
directed back to what to work on to improve.
Right.
Okay.
Right. If somebody needs extra help, I make them a video.
And to be clear, this is a tool that you would use with a coach. There has to be someone on the other side that's listening in and giving the feedback and directing.
Right. You're not going to get any feedback if you do it on your own.
Right. Okay, I got it.
So these lessons for pronunciation start listening and hearing the difference and moving up into sentences.
Okay.
Once you've mastered the sentence, then I think of some other tricky ways, tricky practices, and then you start making a purposeful effort to use this sound when you're speaking at work. And
Okay.
we start little by little by little, and also try to integrate words that you're going to be using.
Okay.
So this program has all the consonants, all the vowels. It has intonation work. There's the vowels. It has intonation work, learning what syllable to stress, what to do when those words have suffixes or numerous suffixes. And there's lots of other lessons in here too, as well as sport team names, cities and states,
Okay.
common
This
names.
is, so this part of what you do is great for addressing some of the confidence people would have. And if you can make some fixes in some fundamental areas, and this is included in your approach. What
Right.
about the things you would do for helping people become more influential in working with others?
Okay. So let's see. I have another program that I use, and this is a free program. I like it. It is an AI program. So you can just go and use this. Try it for free. And then you can do some recordings, speech, or an interview. And so let's say I'm going to do a speech. I can have my camera on or off.
Mhm.
So let's see. Okay, so this is a great place to practice interview stories, work presentations, answering questions given a framework. And Udly will record you. So it's recording me now. And then I can look at it, and I can see how many fillers I've got in it. And also Udly may understand an articulation, a pronunciation error, or it may not. And it may not understand syllable stress. So now I've done a little recording. I'm going to view my results. So now it puts all my ums and ahs in purple so I can see them. It also does some rating of your word choices. And another interesting thing,
So let me get this straight. So you would have your clients use this and then work with you to learn how to do this naturally, how to avoid this, because it's all this is doing is showing you what's wrong. They still need a coach to work with them, and maybe you would take this output and say, well, you're using ums because you don't have vocabulary, or you haven't thought through an elevator pitch. So let's work on that. Let's talk about some typical scenarios where you need to introduce yourself, or you need to describe the work you do, or you need to answer your boss succinctly about the status of a critical project. Let's work on that. Is that like what you would do when you see this kind of output from Udly?
Yes. And I'm not going to send you to Udly until I think that you're ready for it.
Okay.
Right? Because
So
remember,
how do you prepare them for that? What's
So
some of the process?
we practice in a session
Okay.
together.
Mm.
And I can tell if people are nervous or uncertain about doing it. So I'm going to do it when I think that you're ready for it.
Okay.
The great thing about this is that I can send you comments through Udly, and they can be time stamped.
Mm.
You share your speech with me. There's a share button here, and you'll type in my email. And then I get an email that you've sent something, and I can send you timestamp feedback, or I may send you something different too.
So this
But
is
we're not-
another example of, it's a tool, it's a great tool. It has its limitations in terms of learning what to do with the feedback, and that's where a coach would come in. It's sort of like if you're a tennis player, you can use a backboard at the park and
Right.
you'll get used to hitting things back. But if you really want to be a competitive player, you still need a coach to teach you. Like, you have to step forward when you hit the ball. You have to swing through and up to get the top spin. You have to hit down if you want to do a slam, and this is how you do it. Change your grip, right? So it's very similar to fitness or tennis or sports, right? In that way.
Right. Because otherwise, the only feedback you're getting is yourself,
Right.
right? And the coach has the shortcut.
Right.
The coach is going to get you there quicker and strategically,
Right.
and going to keep you and keep encouraging you to practice.
Get you there quicker and get you there with more skill.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
shortcut. It's how to get what you want faster, more reliably, and with different types of skills, because
Mhm.
not one skill might not be appropriate in all situations, right?
Right.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about your offering. You had a slide that you had developed, and then we have some programs you're offering with a special introduction price. I'm sure some people in the audience really want to hear about that.
Okay, so okay, so I'm gonna skip through some of this. Okay, so I wanted to make a little bit of a summary of why people work with me.
Mhm.
They want to be more visible at work. They want to get noticed. All right. They want to influence people. They've got great ideas, just like all of you in the audience. You have terrific ideas, and people and our country and businesses will benefit from them.
Mm.
They don't want to repeat themselves all the time. They want to be confident and have less stress. Get to the next promotion. Be succinct and effective. Stop rambling. Have better relationships, like I told you about that woman in Seattle. And she's one example, but many people have had the same experience with being able to find out that they can have conversations. I had one young woman say, this was when we were going back working, that when she went out in the hall, she hoped that no one was out in the hall, because she didn't know what to say to them until we worked together. Then she knew how to have a good conversation.
Where was she from? What was her background?
She's from China, and she worked in the pharmaceutical industry out in Boston.
So she would wait until she thought there was no one she would run into that she would have to talk to? Is that was?
Okay, she didn't say she would wait. She hoped she
Okay.
would see no one. Equally sad,
Mm.
right? Equally sad until you know how it is. And I have to admit, I thought I wasn't good at conversations, but I found the trick.
Mm.
And now I can talk to people.
Mm.
And I don't always talk to people, but I can now. And I can feel confident and secure when I go to new places.
Your last bullet's very interesting. How do our native cultures affect our communication?
Right. So we all have different ways that we communicate based on maybe how our family was, where we grew up. And so you already know, if you're in the US, that Americans sometimes brag. They pat themselves on the back. They're happy to share that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I know that people who are from Asia area, China, Korea, Japan, are very humble. And you don't brag. It's about the team. But if you are in a group where the Americans are just saying, "Oh, I'm terrific," and you are quiet, you're not going to be noticed. Okay, so you have to speak out a little bit. You have to say, our team got it done because of my leadership. Right? So there are some differences. And these differences you see with all the different people that you work with. That people from India have one way of doing it. People from Germany have another way. People from Spain have a way. People in the United States have different ways. I live in the South. Believe me, the people in the South have different ways of doing things than where I grew up in Chicago. Yeah, so it's interesting to have that conversation and look at different places across the world and how that enters in.